Hello, my friends. So, I spent some time this weekend intentionally downloading some predictions for 2021. I was interested in like what the year holds for all of us, maybe what some themes are for 2021, and just to give ourselves a little bit of a heads up. So, I got some good information. I'm looking at my laptop, which is on my knees, so that I'll be looking at that. So, 2021 is kind of like the sequel to 2020. So, it's lighter. There's a little bit more, freedom to it, and a little bit more like edge to it, right? You can take a few more risks in 2021. So it's definitely going to be a little lighter, but we're definitely not out of like the woods by any means. So, but definitely better towards the end. We're going to start to see the direction in which we're headed, and we're going to start to see the light at the end of the tunnel. So it's all good, guys. But a few things to know. 2021 is interesting because number one, it is being birthed by 2020. So everything that was confusing and frustrating and all the healings that we had in 2020 and all the weird things that happened have birthed these new thoughts, which are then going to manifest into the next year. So it's going to be a little wacky because of that. So that's going to be interesting. But then in addition to that, many astrologers have said that in February of 2021 we will start a whole new era, which is the Age of the Aquarius. I don't know much about astrology, so my knowledge is limited, but we do know that this is something that happens every 2,000 years. So we're basically going to be in a new sign for 2,000 years, which is a big deal. And it all I want to start by saying also that like if your soul decided to reincarnate during this time and be able to be alive during this time, is very, very on purpose and very important. And there's something, because we're basically like at a crossroads right now, that the earth is either going to go right or it's going to go left. We're going to decide who we want to be. We're going to decide who we truly are, starting in 2021. So I have goosebumps. So if you came like you were one of the strongest of the strong to be able to make this, dip to the right, and you guys, my right and my left are not political, just saying, okay? They're just two paths. So, we can either go this way or go that way. And if you came with all your light, is because it's trying to bring us into the light, whatever that mean, and that is not political, guys. That's very, very important. It's not about, red and blue, left and right, okay? Super important. We're not bringing that shit with us in 2021, okay? So it's a big deal. It's a big deal that you're here. That means that you do not have the luxury to wish, to worry, or to think about whether or not you should be doing your calling or being on purpose or anything like that. Those were the last 10 years ago that we had the luxury to worry about who we want to be, if we want to be our authentic selves, we don't have time for that anymore. We really have to step into who we truly are and really tap into what our purpose is, because this time is so important. The souls that were sent with some sort of a mission, and that can be as simple as clearing your ancestral lineage, and as big as being a world leader, right? So they're all important jobs, but the important thing is like, what is your job and are you doing it? Okay, so that is how I'm going to start this off. Now, we have to look at the Aquarius, the sign of the Aquarius. It reminds me of like the energy of like my 7-year-old son, right? So it's like lots of energy, wants to get a lot of people together, unaware about the old way of doing things, like doesn't even think about like the way things are usually done, just thinks about like what would be the best solution and what's the coolest way to do it. So that means that a lot of these old systems that we're holding on to and that we're trying to fix, the Aquarius gives 3 shits about it, right? It does not. So, those of us who are holding on to old ways are going to have a really hard time if we haven't already started to loosen the grip. This is not a time for fixing the system. This is a time for creating new systems. So don't forget that. Okay, we're gonna see a lot of healing work, which we saw a lot in 2020, but some of us did not really, fully take it in. So we're gonna see more of that in 2021. What I mean by that is like it almost makes me feel like the Aquarius like sign, but being over us is like a magnet that's like kind of taking off all these like layers of us. Like it's forcing us to do that. So if we are not playing the game, we're gonna have a really hard time. So we have to let go. We have to release the things that no longer serve us, things that are not a fit anymore and that don't belong in the new world. We have to, and all of us have that on on an individual level. I have those things on an individual level, and then we have them on a collective level. But we have to be really aware of what we're holding on to, right? So what are we like holding on to really, really tight, and being able to start to let that go. Okay. Healing, the thing about this healing process is like some of us are going to be caught off guard because and this also already started in 2020, so maybe you're like just continuing what came up in 2020, but it's going to catch us off guard because it's almost like a type of feeling that we're going to be called out on what needs to be released. So a little bit of like, oh my gosh, I had no idea that was coming for me. But that's also what helps us like release that ego and release our attachment and all that kind of stuff. So nobody likes to be called out, so it's not necessarily going to be fun, but you can get ahead of it by just committing to saying like, okay, I'm going to start releasing whatever needs to be released. I may not know what that is, but I am going to seek some help. But I'm going to go ahead and seek some help to make sure I release that. Okay. Now, when a big group of people are doing healing work together, it's a beautiful thing. But what happens is that as a collective, we're gonna start to have a lack of tolerance for things that we used to tolerate. And what happens when a group starts to like not tolerate things anymore, it causes problems, right? It causes like civil unrest and sometimes war, things like that. So we're still going to see like what we saw last year where, we were like, we're not putting up with this anymore. And there's going to be, a little bit more of that, that friction and that causing problems. So don't be afraid when you see that. It's a good thing. It will work itself out, but it's part of the healing process. It's to decide that I don't want this anymore. I want to change things. But since we're all doing it on a collective level, we're going to see a few more movements, basically, more social movements happening. Okay. There's going to be a lot of innovation that we're going to see start to pop up because last year we were looking for so many, for 2020, we were looking for so many solutions. So this seems like this is happening mainly in like the workplace, like the way we work is being innovated. And it seems like there's going to be two generations that are not going to have fun with this, baby boomers and Gen X. So if you're in those generations, just set the intention that you're here for the ride, that this is an adventure and that you're open to all the changes and all the innovations, because if not, you're going to almost like be forced out. So make sure that you're being okay with all these changes and that you're excited about doing things a new way. And this is good for you because this is good for your mind and all that. So any of us who are holding on to antiquated ideology, and that can be as ugly as white supremacy, all the way to as simple as the systems of being a doctor or being in the medical field or being in the teaching environment. Like all those different like ways of thinking are going to be challenged, and we have to be open to letting that innovation come in. If not, it's going to cause frictions for those of us who are in those industries. It's these industries that affect all of us and these ideas that affect all of us. Okay. A few themes that I see coming up, speaking about being a teacher, it seems like we're going to have a big emphasis on the school systems. So we may see like people, like just not liking the way things are going, teachers and parents and the structures of the school system starting to be really like at odds. There may be strikes, and it's okay, you guys. It's okay. Remember, it is not a time to fix systems, but actually to create new ones. So new innovations are going to come out of that. If your school that you're in or your districts that are in are very antiquated, they're just not going to do super well. So it's okay because new stuff is going to come out of that. And it's okay for you as an individual to seek these new ways of being. So if you need to like leave the system and move to another system, it's okay, and it's a good thing. So another theme that we see is money being centralized in one place. I know a lot of us have thought that money has been centralized in like a 1%, but this actually seems like a location to me. So that it's being centralized in one location and that we've allowed that to happen. So that's going to cause a little bit of a problem. And what I was receiving from the divine guidance was that we have to remember that money is simply a bartering system. We barter. We like give a service. We do something in exchange for this money. And what's going to solve, which at least, what is going to at least start the solution to come about is for all of us to start to understand our own worth, because what we're bartering is ourselves. Like we are exchanging ourselves for this money. So we have to know our worth. And they were just saying that like once we establish our worth, everything else will make sense. So I don't have like all the answers, for money stuff, but what's important is that you really dig into knowing what you deserve. And I don't think it's going to happen. It's not going to be just as an individual. This is going to be a big collective thing. So like groups will be like, teachers will be like, F this, like I'm worth so much more. Or, the police department, like I'm worth so much more. So like these groups are going to start to establish their worth as a whole, as a group. But we should all be doing that as on an individual level, because it's going to set the tone for some time in the future. This also means that alternative currencies like Bitcoin are not going away. I don't know too much about alternative currencies, so I can't give you too much specific information, but it just seems like there's going to be money solutions, and like kind of the way that the way that we barter is going to be open to suggestions, is the way that I see it. Also looks like that there's going to be a full legalization of marijuana. I know we've been on that path, but they were talking to me about plant-based psychedelics and certain, organic drugs, I guess that you want to call them. And they were saying that this is very important to the evolution of the human species. Like, I guess and listen, I actually don't use any of these things because I can do it in meditation, which if you want to do it that way, join me in the Soul Academy programs. Because I know, addiction is a real thing. These awful accidental deaths that come from these different, from like drug use and all that kind of stuff is a real thing. But it seems like using it in a certain way and it being legal is what helps like the human species evolve. Like it expands what we're capable of understanding. So we're going to see this to be more of a trend, maybe like ceremonies being more of a trend, things like that. That it's going to help us, but if you want to do it the good old fashioned way in meditation, come join me. We talked about the school system. So COVID, definitely not out of the woods. As far as the virus goes, like it's still going to be around and it's still going to be spreading. But one thing that's going to be interesting is people are not going to put up with like the restrictions on their life as much. So we're going to see people around March or so start to like be like, forget this shit. And, because they're going to start to show that like there's been, and this group, whether you agree with it or not, and this is what's important about 2021. 2021 is not about right and wrong, what do I agree with and what I don't agree with. It's about understanding that there is a diversity of thought and that all those thoughts matter, and that why have they been being controlled, and why are we looking, who is making us think that there is one way to think? That is a lack of diversity. And who's winning on us thinking that way? And that's going to be a big thing. So try not to have your own beliefs, of course, and your own commitment, but try not to get stuck in black and white and right and wrong. So what's important about this group, this collective that decides that, that really show us that some of these infringements on our freedoms under the guise of COVID are like not okay. They're going to start to come out. What's really interesting about them is that it's not necessarily that their point of view is correct, or it's right or wrong. It really doesn't matter. What's important is that this is going to show that how like our information is being sent to us, because these groups, or this has always been around, and there's something about this group that comes out that shows like us that like big tech, social media, things like that are really like kind of feeding us our information. And I guess because of the uproar of this, we start to see that more clearly, and we can start to, we're just, this theme is going to continue. I know it's already started, but it's going to like hit like its climax in 2021. So one thing I'm excited about is that because we're out of the campaign here in the US, there will be less politicizing of, like, we will get a little bit of a relief from having to politicize all our decisions. Like, oh, if my party thinks this way, then I must think this way. If my party thinks that way, I must think that way. So I'm excited that like that's going to start to like lessen a little bit more. It's still going to happen, but we're not going to be as pressured. And that actually gives us an opportunity to think for ourselves. And that's what 2021 is really like. If there's one theme for it, it's like, who am I truly? What do I stand like? And what do I believe to be true for myself with no outside noise? Like, what is within me? 2021, I wrote that, like 2021 gives us the opportunity to think for ourselves. It's a big theme that's going to happen. And because we won't be like pressured to think by our parties or by like, I don't know, these like this group thinks this way, so I think that way. Like as that starts to lessen, we're going to start to break apart like that herd thinking that's been happening. And it's just going to, we're not going to have a solution for it, but like individuals are going to start to realize that more and more. And like what's going to happen is that through that, we're going to be able to see clearer, and we're going to start to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And we're going to start to see as a group what path we decide to take. And also like who's the puppet master is some of the stuff that's going to come out in 2021. So, like who is the puppet master? Like who are the puppet masters? Like that's really going to start to come out in 2021 because we decided to start to think for ourselves. I think that's going to happen towards the like second half of the year more so. Like again, like after after March, April, something like that. Which I guess is not, it's like the second quarter, but it's going to be a big theme for us. So yeah, exciting year. There's a lot of opportunity in 2021. So it's really nothing to be afraid of as long as you're excited about possibilities and what can be new, and excited about freedom and like how much freedom you have as a soul, you're going to be just fine, It's going to be an interesting year. But yeah, hope that was helpful, you guys. Thanks for being here with me. If you want to know about your own 2021 year, I highly recommend booking a year ahead reading with one of our soul mentors. These are people that have been trained by me to read the way that I read, but they're priced much less expensive than I am. And I really want to give that gift to you guys. So it's an $80 reading. You get to look at your year ahead in 2021 and really get some more clarity, and also kind of maybe looking at what I just gave you, this prediction, and putting it up against yours and using those two informations to make good choices for yourself and to make heart-led, soul-based decisions for yourself, because that is what the world needs of you. So thank you for being here. Love you very much, and I will see you soon.